Well, the big story surrounding the Cowboys continue to be their star in Micah Parsons. He is in camp, but not being able to practice. Of course, he's in that hold-in for a possible long-term deal when it comes to the two sides. But there's a new report this morning from The Athletic saying that the relationship between Parsons and the team is, quote, deteriorating, and that he is considering, quote, drastic measures as that contract standoff continues to fester. As we know, when it comes to the Cowboys, there's always drama before we get to week one. And with that, I want to welcome in our Dallas Cowboys reporter, Garrett Podell, who will be with the team earlier next week. And Garrett, how did we get here? Let's just simply start there.
That's a great question, Brandon. I've been covering this story in person for the entire calendar year here in 2025. And I remember all the way back to their regular season finale at home against Washington. They lose barely. They'd been eliminated from playoff contention. And Jerry Jones mentions to me and a couple other reporters standing outside the locker room after that game that Micah Parsons had reached out to him to set up a one-on-one meeting in his suite for the college football playoff semifinal between Ohio State and Texas back on January 10th. And then when we go into the locker room to talk to Parsons during that time, he confirmed that and laid out some of the things he wanted to discuss with Jerry, but he said he knew Jerry likes to take a long time on these long-term deals, so he wanted to get the ball rolling ASAP. At that time in January, his hope was to be signed before free agency in March to clear cap space and really help the team kind of add players after the disappointing 2024 campaign. And if we fast forward ahead to April, okay, so this is just before the NFL draft. I go to a Cowboys charity event out at the Frisco ballpark where the Texas Rangers minor league AA affiliate plays. And I spoke to Parsons there, and he mentioned that it's about respect because earlier during the football season, myself and a few other reporters have been at Parsons' locker. And at the time, Justin Jefferson's $35 million average per year salary was the top of the non-quarterback market. And he had mentioned he didn't necessarily need to top Jefferson at that point in time, but, you know, wanted to be around there. But that was during the season. Fast forward to April, just before the draft, Max Crosby, who you see on your screen, Myles Garrett, as you'd see on your screen, they had signed long-term extensions. And Myles Garrett's number, and he's older than Parsons, was $40 million a year. And so Parsons said he didn't initially go into this looking for 40, but it's about respect. He says, I'm younger than these guys, and as you can see, he's been just as good or better than all the guys who've gotten paid this offseason. And so now that made it a respect kind of thing, and the market had risen. So Parsons' expectations had risen. And Jerry Jones' response to that was, you know, we're on my timeline, and we're going to see and play this out and make sure the deal is just right. Now, you can tell things really kind of deteriorated when this first week of training camp hits. Jerry Jones mentions about signing deals early. What if a player gets hit by a car? And he mistakenly mentioned that Parsons missed 6 games with an ankle sprain this past year when it was only 4. Parsons himself talked and said, you know, I've asked my agent to call the Cowboys. They haven't called him back. And he said he doesn't feel disrespected any differently than, say, a Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb, who went through this exact situation before re-signing a year ago. But he said, quote, I just don't understand it, meaning their process and how they handle these long-term deals.
I tell you what, Garrett, this is nothing new when it comes to Jerry Jones. You highlighted that. We saw that with CeeDee Lamb. Dak got his deal right before kickoff, week 1 before the Browns there. If you're Micah, you have to have some type of patience, but clearly it's running out. How do they get a deal done based on what you've seen, the pathways to get to this?
That's a great question, Brandon. I think the biggest way to get it done is pick up the phone. Jerry and Mike have had kind of, quote, unofficial contract talks about overall terms for this deal. But Mike has been clear that David Mulugeta, his agent, needs to be involved for the lines being fully filled in and signed on this contract. And Jerry has made it very clear, I don't talk to the principals, I don't talk to the lawyers in these deals. That's more Stephen Jones and cap expert Adam Privska. And so that's kind of on Stephen Jones to pick up the phone now and talk to David Mulugeta and say, all right, what's it going to take? And because they've waited and waited and waited, it's now probably going to take slightly above TJ Watt's number of $41 million a year that he's now got on a 3-year contract. So It's going to take the Cowboys eating a slice of humble pie like they did a year ago with Dak Prescott. And when they made Prescott the highest paid player in the NFL on an average per year basis, $60 million a year on his 4-year contract they signed hours before kickoff in week 1. But it's going to be very interesting to see based on kind of how the talks deteriorated if the Cowboys will finally relent and pick up the phone. For what it's worth, at the end of mandatory minicamp, Dak Prescott guaranteed this deal would get done because that's their history he's seen with his contract.
It's crazy to think, too, because David Mulligata, the agent, he has a client already on the Cowboys roster, so it's not like Jerry Jones doesn't know the guy, but we'll have to see. And I think somebody famous, Fat Joe, said once, yesterday's price is not today's price. Now that it's ugly, it's just gotten worse. Garrett Podell, appreciate your time. We'll see you next week. You will be busy, my friend, on Micah Watch when it comes to the Cowboys. The closer we get to that week 1 kickoff against the Eagles. But don't forget, Count on Sunday return September 7th. You can watch all the games locally live there on CBS. We'll have you covered on HQ Monday mornings on The Buzz. And don't forget, streaming on Paramount Plus.